am still in the process of getting myself together here. I am, it's like I have arrived. I have arrived. I have my book. I've got my water. I've got my glasses. Everything is good. I am so glad. And it is, for those of you that it matters, it's Friday. Friday. How do they say it? Friday with a growl in your voice. It's Friday. And this is All-Star Weekend in Cleveland. So it sounds like there is an amazing amount of stuff going on here in the city. And so, you can get out and get yourself involved in some of it and just have an amazing time if that is what suits you. The streets, from what I hear, are, well, no, let me not even tell you from what I hear, right? This morning, I went to, no. That was last night. I got it confused. I went to let my dog out at maybe about 9:30, right before I was getting ready to go to bed, like usual. And my dog walked out on the porch and slipped. You ever seen a dog fall? It's not very far, of course. She's a little dog, but nonetheless, she slipped and fell. That's how slick it is. Now, she got 4 legs. If she couldn't stay up on 4 legs, on 2, you better be careful. So the streets are probably amazingly slick because it went from rain and melting snow right into whoosh. The chill came in, iced over all of that stuff. And so, yeah, you are going to see the streets be like sheets of ice. And hopefully there's some salt down, and it just seems like it goes from one day is 60 degrees melting snow to like back down into the teens. And that's kind of like, it's Cleveland. What can I say? It's Cleveland. So yeah, whatever. I am here and I am so happy to be here. So what did I have on my mind? Like, there is always this stuff that's always popping off for me, but I have committed to kind of trying to delve back into this book a little bit, because this is, of course, I was saying to you yesterday as I ended up, Stephanie is scheduled to return on Monday. But on Monday, we are scheduled to, I need to get the invitations out. We are scheduled to have the posse, a group of us in to discuss something. I'm not quite sure what. I'm going to maybe send out some stuff so that we don't spend our time talking about relationships. Not that this is not good, but sometimes it misses the point when we are so busy talking and pointing the finger. So I am going to send out the invites along with probably a little piece to just kind of chew on. And it's so interesting because I know that from being on here, I have been called Sidetrack Sand by none other than Erica. And so a lot of times I come in with the intent of getting through a certain amount of stuff, but I don't. And so the fact that I don't is all good, because I know that what is supposed to come up and come out, even if it is, here's a sidetrack. One of the things that used to get me about ministers is that they couldn't seem to adjust sometimes to the atmosphere in the room on occasions. And so, we've seen people who come in and they come in already carrying some stuff. Like last night, I can talk about, good morning, fantastic Friday to you too, Ruth. But like last night somebody mentioned to me that there was a video out there that everybody was up in arms about the two young men that were fighting in the mall in New Jersey. And so I, of course, had to check it out and see what that was all about, because I don't turn on my TV, haven't turned on my TV, and I didn't know what it was all about. So I went and I watched the video. And I'm so glad that everybody was able to walk away from that unscathed, except for those two police officers. And I will tell you that made it into my dreams last night, as a matter of fact. And so, a lot of times when we talk about the trauma that we experience in our community, in this country, there is a atmosphere when we talk about the consciousness of a place. There is an atmosphere that is violence prone. And sure enough, I can talk to you about this. Is probably, if you watched it, we have probably beat it. I don't know what everybody else has talked about, but to talk about the actions of those two officers, to talk about the treatment, the unequal treatment of those kids, the way that they blurred out the white kid's face, but not the black kid's face. I mean, there was so much to kind of like look at and to sink our teeth into. It's almost like a dog gnawing on a bone. And so what we know is that we have a lot of problems in this country, and the more we choose to not address them, the more we choose to not talk about them, to bring them up to the surface, the more we will see things like this continuing out. People playing out the programming that they've already received. And so, so when we're talking about these things, is it just to kind of hash over, to tell people what it is that we think and why we think them? What's the purpose of it? And so the purpose really ought to be about, that we know that there is a problem, and that unless we are effectively addressing that problem, and that means at each and every police department across this country, right? Understanding that there is a responsibility that they have to all citizens. And so when we start to talk about it, unless we demand that, unless we start working towards it, and even here in Cleveland, Ohio, we have, we put police reform on the ballot, and it won. And I've heard crickets so far, but I know that at a certain point, it has got to be acted upon. And so for each and every one of us, it is, what's mine to do? What's mine to do? What's mine to do? And so we have really got to start talking about this a lot more, and then understanding the inner workings behind it. And I'll say too, I don't have the notion that there are any people out here that have, what I want to say, stress-free lives across the board. Even my life, as juicy as it is, moist and wonderful as it is, I still get opportunities for growth. And if that means that some stress or trauma comes into my realm, and it may not be anything that I'm causing, it could be just what other people bring to me with this. I mean, there's always something, and it's always an opportunity to let me look closer at, what is it that I'm to do? How do I continue to see my brother as innocent? And so that becomes the challenge for me. How do I see love and only love, even when something else appears? That becomes the challenge. And so if I am not, if I'm not challenged in some kind of way, whether it's being cut off in traffic, or a rude person behind the counter, or what? How do I stay in a place of peace? And that's the responsibility for all of us. It's not cutting people out of our lives. It's not trying to make it seem as though we should never have struggle, strife, drama, or anything like that in our life. It's the given what lands before me, what am I to do? Right. And so I always say, if you spot it, you got it. It's yours. It's your lesson. And so nobody owes us this thing of, like, well, you did this and you did. No, people are supposed to be able to show up in your life as they show up in your life. And then you figure out how to deal with it. That's the calling. The calling is not to never have drama. It's given the drama that I have or that I perceive, how then do I address it? And and I'm so thankful that, that we're able to prove who it is that we say we are, who we desire to be at every moment, right? And I know for me, I even check myself. I said something to my sister earlier in the week, and I was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, how do I draw that back, right? Because you can't unsay something. And while it may have seemed like something to her, it may have been like nothing. Like she might have taken it like, oh, that's just saying, right? For me, it was something like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That shouldn't have been my response, right? So let me be responsible for my words. Greatest of mornings to you, Everett. Still here for you as you stand by yourself. You know what, Everett? I never feel like I stand by myself, right? I got a whole posse, even though you can't see them. Spirit is always working through me. And it's so funny because it feels like sometimes it's like, okay, here, say that. Oh, say that. No, you got to talk about this. And I feel like that. And so sometimes I am editing saying, oh, I ain't talking about that. So thank you for that though, right? Thank you for that. But I never walk alone. Neither do you. Neither. We always feel like because we don't see something else there. We sometimes feel that way. Yeah, we sometimes feel like we are by ourselves, but my strength, God's strength is my strength, right? And so I get to use that. Today, A Course in Miracles is that there is nothing to fear. And while fear is not I know that there are certain areas in my life where there is uncertainty. I don't call it fear. But on the flip side of it is that I have evidence that even as I stand in that uncertainty, that it always works out for my good. I got evidence that says that. And so different people will perceive that differently, right? Somebody might, other people are always judging your stuff, but it's how do you see it, right? And how do you stand in that spirit of knowing? I always find that interesting because a lot of times people make this all about the physicality of life. And I know, just like me, I know that most of you know that the little line in the Bible that says, that which appears comes from that which you do not see, basically is what it's saying. Or that which is visible comes from that which is invisible, however that particular scripture goes. And so there is, even though you can't see it, there is this mass of energy that is pushing us and propelling us at every moment. As a matter of fact, it's what animates our being. So I would tell you, I have taken to, since reading that book by, it's not Bruce Lipton, there's another book by a cellular biologist. I want to tell you what the name of the book is. It's slipping my mind, but anyway, anyway, as I was reading his book, and he was talking about seeing ourselves as a collection of like trillions of cells. He says that there are more cells in our bodies than all the stars in the galaxy. And when we look up, a lot of times we see a lot of stars. And so when you think about that, all of these cells are firing and wiring together within your body, being held together by this membrane that is called a skin. And what is true for on the minute level that your eye cannot see is true on a bigger level. So I have taken to, when my body says that I need water, I'm listening to it. I'm listening to my cells talk to me as they contract and expand, whether it is my stomach or whether it is, contracting using the bathroom or digesting food. I am trying to, because I know all of them have individual responsibilities, and I'm just sending them all love now that I am aware of that they are doing a job. I am sending them love. And so just like what I see that appears, I also know that there are all these beings around me that are enlivening and doing this message. So just like I have them here with me, they're right there where you are. And I'm so glad that they're with you and loving you and supporting you, and knowing that they got you. There is nothing to fear, nothing to be afraid of, and you are never alone. So sometimes we just got to get up and say to all the posse that travels with us, our spirit beings, light beings, ascended masters, teachers, all those that are on our path. Sometimes we just got to get up and say, good morning. Woo, because it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. All right. So I haven't touched on this book. I missed doing the book yesterday because it was like, I don't know where I went off on a whole nother tangent yesterday. And I was late because I had computer issues. And then on Wednesday, I talked a little bit about this. I think I was on the Lebanese family, and I just wanted to try to get through this. Sometimes I make hashtags in my book to say where I left off talking. And unless I write a date on there, I don't always know that that's the place where I'm supposed to pick up talking. I sometimes think, oh, that must have been where I stopped reading. I don't know. But I shared on Wednesday, I do believe it was, my trip to Egypt and the experience that I had with, I think that this was Wednesday, the experience that I had with the women that were hiding behind the curtain, and my feeling that if they couldn't come into the living room and sit and share with me in drinking tea, I shouldn't drink tea either. And so as I turn around and I look at this, it was talking about this Lebanese family that he worked with, and how both grandmothers of this person who was sitting before him, both of their grandmothers on either side, was forced to be child brides. They married early and therefore didn't finish their maturation process. And then they were expected to then cater to and be the wife of some older man. And then what that looked like, how that manifests itself in their life. And then you see these patterns being played out over and over again. So, and so when you have these patterns, we've been talking a little bit about patterns and how to break those patterns. Sometimes we are laying down new track, so to speak, like if you're thinking about a railroad system, sometimes it feels as though we are laying down new track. It's as if our family has not been here in this situation before, whatever that may mean, either that they didn't make it to the age that you are, or that they had different circumstances, there's a lot of times different patterns that's being laid down. If you pay attention to those things, sometimes it will feel as if, say, for instance, if your mother, like my mother, passed at the age of, what was she, 57, 58, about the age that I'm approaching now, right, is when my mother passed. And I remember when my sister approached that age, she kept talking about over and over again, Mama didn't live until, Mama didn't, it was like on repeat for that entire year, as if, and my grandmother did it too. My grandmother, when she talked about her mother, she constantly talked about, it was almost like a countdown. I've lived this much longer than my mother, or I've lived this much longer than. And so it was always this thing of trying to make the comparison based on where a person is, based on where their parents were at the time when they left their demise. And so sometimes we feel like we're in new territory or on new ground. And so here he's talking about, he says, with break in the mother-child bond among siblings, each child may express his or her disconnection with their mother or with their father very differently. And we know this is true, especially if you have siblings, right? I don't know if you do or not, but if you have siblings, you know that each of us experiences something different. My sister being the oldest, she came into, my parents weren't newlyweds. I think they have been married for a couple of years, but she came in as the first child, which means that there was a different amount of attention that she received. There was a different, not only from both my parents, but also from grandparents and other folks around. There was something about that being alone for the 2 years, 2, maybe 3 years that she was alone. But now here's an interesting thing. The child that my mother, there was a child in between my sister, my oldest sister, and my older brother. My older brother has already passed, but there was a child in between that was in, and I don't know if it was a miscarriage. I do believe it was a miscarriage. She miscarried in between that. And so that miscarriage also has an energy all its own. That miscarriage is almost like a stop gate. When a spirit is coming, it's a stop gate, and that energy is still there. So how she processed that would have also impacted my sister as well as my brother afterwards, right? And so all of these things are very interesting. So one of the things he says that one child may come out and be a total people pleaser, right? Fearing that somehow if they're not good or if they don't do enough, that their parents won't like them. There is this feeling when the attention is turned away from the older child onto a younger child, there is this feeling of abandonment too that can go on. It says that they fear that if they don't do the people pleasing piece, that they will somehow lose their connection or whatever that, however that fear may manifest itself. I'm trying to go on here. Another child, believing that the connection was never hers in the first place, may become argumentative or create conflict to push away the people in their life. Another child might isolate and have little or no contact. You may have a clown in your family who is basically always trying to do something in order to get more attention. There are so many ways that people show up that I couldn't even possibly try to name all the things that we do in order to try to gain attention and affection from those around here. that are around us. It says, if you notice that if several siblings have a break in the mother-child bond, they often express that through anger or jealousy, feeling disconnected from one another, right? And so I can remember back in the day when, even, I don't know when this started, but my siblings and I would all pile on my mother talking about my mommy first, right? We did this thing all the time, my mommy first. I mean, to think about it now is just hilarious to me, especially in light of this book. But we would pile up on her and talk about, you know, um, like we had some special piece of her that nobody else had, which really could only fall to my oldest sister because it was really her mother first. And so when you think about it, we were always feeling as if, although she said that, she didn't play favorites, she didn't have a favorite or anything like that. She said that, but it felt very different to each of us. And all of us wanted some type of piece of her. And there was a certain amount of jealousy, I think, um, in trying to get and gather her attention. Now, so let me show y'all how this manifested for me. My brothers were all into sports. My dad used to be an athlete when he was younger. And so for him, sports was a big deal. And so a lot of times what he would do is that he would get my brothers involved in sports, and sometimes sports that they didn't even like they didn't really care for baseball, but it was, my dad's thing. But so they started wrestling at the YMCA at a pretty young age. And the wrestling thing was, I mean, it was a family affair. We all had to go. When my brothers wrestled, everybody went. Then they played basketball, then it was football, but it was always that we were following my brothers wherever they went. Now, when I, on the other hand, decided that I wanted to get into athletics, first I tried to play basketball. And the first time somebody came down on my face with their elbow, I was like, okay, I'm done, right? I was just, I'm not into all of this rough stuff. They just, elbowing you and doing, I was like, yeah, I'm not, right? So the other love that I had was gymnastics. And I don't know what is it about gymnastics, but I couldn't get nobody to come see me do gymnastics if I paid them. They look at me like I was out of my mind. Like, why would we go watch you flip on a mat? Right? You can go in there in the living room and flip if you want to. Ain't nobody going to see you. I was so dejected and hurt. I could not get anybody. I mean, even when they were dropping me off for gymnastic practice, they wouldn't even come inside. I mean, just nothing. And so even that I quit because I couldn't get no holler out of my family for that. And so I felt some kind of way. There was this, well, why is it that my brothers, if they decide that they want to ride a dirt bike over some dunes, everybody out there, right? If they, whatever it is, it's like we all are expected to go and cheer them on. But if I was doing something, it was like, girl, go somewhere and sit down, right? That was what I got. And so, yeah, there was always these feelings. And so when he talks about this in here, this idea that, for example, he says that an older child might resent a child born later, perceiving that the younger child received more love or leniency. I'll put that in there, even if he didn't, right? More stuff, more attention, all kind of stuff. And we sitting up there thinking like, we ain't get treated that way. How come That was our favorite thing. Why did they get? Why did this? And I may have told y'all that when I was in high school, I remember I thought I was doing good, right? I was, acing chemistry, and I was really good in the maths and science areas, all of that stuff. I thought I was doing good. And I went in there one time and approached my father and said, well, why is it that my two younger brothers, why is it that they get to go to private school and I'm going to public school? And he looks at me and he says, I'm sending them to school to learn. Well, what am I supposed to be doing? That was my answer. Well, what am I supposed to be doing? He said, you're supposed to be finding you a husband. Now go in there and get me something to drink. Oh my gosh, right? I don't know if you've ever had that kind of conversation, but that was my dad. That was my dad. Oh my goodness. So yes, my dad was there every day of my life. All right. I didn't have any missing pops or anything like that. He was there every day of my life. And that was his vision of the gender question. It was just crazy to me. And so so anyway, because the hippocampus, he says, is a part of the brain involved with creating memories, it isn't fully operational until the age of 2. So the older child may not consciously remember being held, fed, or cuddled by their mother, but remember the younger children receiving a mother's love. And so if they don't have any, and like for my family, for the most part, we are 2 years apart, with the exception of the youngest. And he came, was it 5 years later? One was born in 66 and the next one in 70. So 4 years later, right? So, so we all probably remember something very different, right? So, and then it says, and of course, there are some children who don't seem to carry any family trauma at all. And so depending upon where you are in the family, they will talk about how we may receive different messages or how we may have something different. In response, older children feeling slighted, they can unconsciously blame the younger child for getting what he or she did not. And so it's really interesting the way that works, right? So it says, and then it goes on to say, for these children, it's quite possible that a successful bond is established with the mother and or father, and the connection helped to immunize the child from carrying that thing of entanglement that we talked about before. So whatever the case may be, there are a lot of possibilities that people will remember or perceive things very differently. And so if it is because they were, because of the way that people were stacked together or not, these perceptions can be really different. Younger children often, though not always, seem to be a bit better than the first children or only children who seem to carry the biggest portion of their family's unfinished business. And so at each stage, depending upon where somebody is, it depends on what they will receive and what they won't. So, so when it comes down to siblings and inherited family trauma, there is no hard and fast rules, he says, on how each child will get affected. Many variables, in addition to the birth order and gender, can influence the choices that siblings make and the lives that they lead. And so you may have some that will constantly be feeling as if they are the example for everyone else, but really that is not always. Just because a person is the oldest is not indicative of whether or not that person actually is the trendsetter for the family. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it's really interesting the way that that works within a family, because even as I'm thinking about this, you know, when we look at my family, there was 5 of us, and to think about that each person carried with them their own set of issues, right? Their own lessons that they had to learn. Each one of us had something very different. I, as a middle child, and I had 2 older siblings, 2 younger siblings, and each of us had something very different that we were carrying and still carry to this day. And whether or not we're conscious and see it as something valid to pay attention to is something also very different. So all of us come with something very different. A lot of times we have the expectations when a person is born into a family that they come out with the same kind of energy or the same kind of drive. And while I can say that there is a lot of similarities in our value systems, it doesn't necessarily show up in the way that we express ourselves in the world. So my youngest brother and me are more alike when it comes down to how we see the world and express ourselves, right? My sister is, she probably thinks I'm, I, my, I tell y'all about my sister every once in a while, right? When I went to her job one time, I'm gonna tell y'all this. When I went to her job one time, and she had been working for this place for, I don't know, 20 years. And I finally go in one time to see my sister because I was out by her job. So I go in and I go to the receptionist at the front desk and I ask for her. And so she was like, oh, sure, certainly. And so she gets on the thing and she calls up there to find my sister and to tell her that she has someone in the lobby to see her. And so the woman puts her hand over the phone and she says, can I tell her your name, who you are? And I said, I'm her sister. And she looks at me and she puts the phone down and she says, you're her sister? And I said, yeah. And she says, Sandra? Yes. And so she goes back, she picks up the phone and she says, is her sister down here to see her? Now, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue when I got that reaction. Like, you couldn't possibly be her sister, right? I didn't have a clue as to what that was about. But then I kind of started watching because other people started coming down there to the lobby where I was, looking at me as if I was an anomaly of some sort, right? So, I'm kind of tripping on this. Like, I'm talking to people and I'm laughing and I'm doing my normal, but they're just looking at me like something was wrong with me. I kept thinking to myself, what is this? My sister would describe me or talk about me in ways that people would have thought that I was some kind of bum or something. I don't know. But the one woman said, oh, she says, well, we kind of had this running joke. Like, Sandra was the sister who it takes an hour and a half for her to watch 60 Minutes. Now, Erica might, or y'all even might sit there and say, oh yeah, I can see it taking you an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes, right? You might laugh at that and say, yeah, because you're going to put it on pause and give us your opinion and go down this track and go down that track, right? You might say it because you see me in a different light, right? And And you might say, okay, so Sandra just will go off on a tangent on anything like that, right? But these people were thinking that it was taking me an hour and a half to watch 60 minutes because I was slow. I was like, you know, oh, no, no, yeah, no. You know, and so the perceptions that people have based on how we're characterized comes through very differently, right? And depending upon who's telling the story. Now, this is not to say that my sister, I told y'all about my sister the other day that I said my sister says that she didn't like me, but she loved me, right? She didn't like me, but she was like, but I can't help but be happy when I'm around you. She says, because it's as if the sun shines on you, right? So I get, but the way that we talk about people and the way that we share about people doesn't always bring their allness into the picture. So I may talk about my dad and I may tell you some of the things that he says that are totally jarring, but I hope in the same instance you get that there was this, you know, that my dad loved me and there was nothing that he would give me a hard time, but there was nothing that he wouldn't do for me. And that goes for all of my family. I mean, my family was his life, right? And so while I may talk about it in a certain way, sometimes what we do is we talk about people, and as we talk about them, we talk about the things that we're complaining about them instead of talking about all the things that we love about them. And so how do we find a way to bring all of that together, right? How do we find a way to recognize who people are truly and not just according to our drama or our birth order or what we didn't get or what we, you know, what we think we know about them? How do we really see people in their fullness as opposed to the little pieces that we're nitpicking about? And so that's one of the things that's here. We all carry with us this what he calls this residue of our family history. It's like the soap residue that we may have on our bodies. We carry that with us wherever we go. But at the same time, you know, we can allow it to affect how we show up, or we can say, oh, you know what, it's not even something that I'm really conscious of right anymore. I have a cousin who is extremely successful, right? He is very successful in his life, period, right? Period. As a child, it was something really different. And maybe what happens is that our circumstances as children drive our motivation to be more successful, because if we were either picked on or put down or something as children, we are in this constant mode of wanting to prove ourselves, prove our worth, prove our value, to show up in ways that says, ah, look at me now. And so sometimes that is the force that pushes us or drives us to do the different things that we do, because we have felt for so long not seen, not loved, not heard. And so sometimes we get it confused. We're thinking that because I didn't get the love or the attention that I wanted, what I'll do is make sure that I'm always in a position where either where you can make sure that you got all of these people around you, or that people can envy you, or any number of things. You know how this works. And so all of this contributes to how it is that we will see each other. So, or how we show up in our lives or in our affairs. And so that residue of what we've experienced back then may have a different way of showing out as we get older. And so even the people that we thought we that were supposed to be the most congenial or the most popular or the most something back when we were younger turn out very differently as adults. And we see this played out over and over again. Even me, right? Even me. Especially me sometimes. It plays out very differently. And also let me say this, because I remember going through a phase when I was younger of having a certain self-importance that was just hiding the self-esteem work that I needed to do. And so sometimes we misplace this thing of having self-esteem with accomplishments. So what we do is that, we'll be overly successful, or we'll get overly caught up in titles and positions and all of that stuff, because on our own of ourselves, we don't feel quite worthy. And so when you don't feel worthy, what you try to do is you try to push forward. Oh, I've got this degree or that degree, or I've got this car, or I've bought this, or, all of these other things that we think that will lift our esteem in the world, because over on the other side, we've got places within us that we haven't done the healing work necessary. And so part of this work here is to heal our woundedness, to heal these traumas that live in our bodies, and not just leave it to the golden calves that we hold up. And the golden calf that we hold up is sometimes just those things, right? The house, the position, the spouse, the all of the stuff that we think that the world will esteem or hold in high esteem. If we have that, then we somehow feel better about ourselves. And that is, as Stephanie would say, that's the work that we have to do. So these intangibles, so let me say this. Most of us carry at least some residue of our family history. However, many intangibles also enter into the equation and can influence how deeply entrenched family traumas remain, right? How deeply entrenched they remain. Ooh. I didn't even get into that. These intangibles include self-awareness, the ability to self-soothe, and to have a powerful internal healing experience. When we've gone through those things, sometimes that's like our fast pass forward. When we have a good sense of awareness, self-awareness, being able to ask ourselves questions and do the work that is necessary. All right. So with that, I think that, am I complete? Yesterday, after I got off of here, oh, that's what is, I was trying to figure out my little, I keep looking over here because my calendar is telling me that there is something that's going on today. And I was like, I keep thinking to myself, what do I have this going on? And I finally was able to focus in and see that I have something that is going on this morning. But yesterday morning, I left out of here going to a breakfast that started at 9. I didn't get there until probably a little after 10. Didn't get any breakfast, but the conversation and the people that I was able to meet and contact was really good. So yeah, so I'm now, as I sit here and I've completed this section. And so healing images are and our brain will be the next section that that I take on, but I probably will not get to that until Tuesday in this particular book. Tomorrow I will be here, and on Saturdays I don't normally talk about the book that I'm working from, that we're working from, because Stephanie is not here. I don't know. I may backtrack over some of this stuff. I'm not sure. Um, I don't know. We'll see what comes up. What comes up comes out. We'll see. And then on Monday, I am sending out the invites today for 8 o'clock on Monday, and we'll see who shows up for our all together collective conversation. And if you are able to log in and participate, great. I'm also going to send out a little snippet and or just a question about your family, birth order, that kind of stuff, so we can maybe chew on it and see what comes out of that. So look for that. And I appreciate your being here today, and whatever day you showed up or whatever day you're watching this, I appreciate your attention. Blessings to you. It's a fabulous Friday. Be careful out there if you have to go out. Be careful as you go out. I don't want anything to happen to you ever, but you are always safe. You are always safe. The wonderful thing about this intangibility is that nothing can really touch who you actually are. But it's amazing. So many of us identify ourselves as our bodies, and beautiful body that it may be, but that ain't all that you are. So as you sit in that energy, I hope you just start talking. Look, have a relationship with all of you. So if it's giving thanks to the cells that make it possible for me to talk and for air to pass through these larynx and come out as my voice, if it is the muscles that control my smile, or the everything, right? Whatever it is, just being thankful. I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for the me that I am and for the you that you are. And I'm thankful for how you show up in the world. I'm thankful for your consciousness. I'm thankful for writers who write material that stimulate our thoughts and give us ideas to think about. I'm thankful even for the challenges that come up to make us look deeper within ourselves as to who we are. I'm thankful for it all. So I bless you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for this day. I hope you make it a fantastic Friday, as Ruth said. So I will send out the invitations to look for yours in your Facebook, I think, in your Facebook account. So blessings, and I'll see you, God willing, in the creek don't rise. I'll see you tomorrow, 7:30-ish. Right here. I'll be right here in the seat in this room waiting on you. All right. Well, are you waiting on me? Whatever the case may be. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Blessings.